Welcome back to the deep dive. There's this universal hunger we all have, I think, to pick up new skills, to broaden our horizons.
Mhm.
And few things feel more empowering, or let's be honest, sometimes more utterly daunting than starting a new language.
Absolutely.
It really can feel like you're standing at the foot of this huge linguistic mountain, just wondering, well, not just where to begin, but how do you actually climb it? Okay, let's unpack this.
And that's precisely why our deep dive today is, I think, so compelling for anyone who's sort of navigating that climb.
Yeah.
We've been really digging into how to start learning English, a
Mhm.
step-by-step guide. And it's a resource that, it doesn't just list the obvious advice. It actually provides a really nuanced strategic path.
Okay.
So our mission for you, our listener, is to pull out the guide's most practical strategies, maybe some surprising insights, and definitely those actionable steps. The kind that go beyond generic advice, hopefully offering you a significant leg up on your English learning journey, whether you're just starting out or maybe looking to break through a plateau you've hit.
Right, that's the sweet spot, isn't it? Because what this guide seems to do so brilliantly is take that feeling, that sense of being overwhelmed by the sheer size of it all,
Yeah.
and transforms it into, well, genuinely manageable steps, little ascents up the mountain. It sounds like it's packed not just with tips, but specific, maybe even counterintuitive approaches, and crucially, fostering a mindset shift.
Exactly.
And the core idea it really champions, the one that resonated with me, is this. Learning English opens doors to new opportunities. Whether you're pursuing a career, traveling, or simply expanding your knowledge, it makes it feel purposeful.
It really does. And the guide doesn't just, suggest setting goals. What's actually quite eye-opening is its deep dive into the psychology behind setting those goals.
Ah, interesting.
It argues that just saying, I want to speak better English, well, that's fundamentally different, motivationally speaking, from aiming to, say, hold a 5-minute conversation on current events by December 1st. Much more concrete.
Right, you can measure that.
Precisely. The guide breaks down how you can kind of engineer those goals to tap into your own intrinsic motivation. It gives you these frameworks for measurable objectives, realistic timelines, turning those vague hopes into powerful, trackable steps that, keep you moving up that mountain.
That makes complete sense. I mean, if you don't define your summit, or at least the next viewpoint, how will you ever know when you've reached it, right?
Exactly.
So, okay, once you've defined that summit or, the next significant landmark on your climb, where does the guide advise we actually start, like plant our feet on the ground? I'm curious if it's the obvious stuff or if there's a unique angle there.
Well, starting with the basics sounds obvious, sure. But the guide suggests that most learners actually rush past critical foundational sounds or grammar structures.
Oh.
Yeah, and that creates these long-term stumbling blocks later on. So it doesn't just list the alphabet or common greetings. It offers something more like a surprising diagnostic approach. It helps you pinpoint exactly which foundational bits you might be weak on, even if you feel like you're intermediate.
I see, like finding the gaps.
Exactly. It emphasizes really internalizing the English alphabet sounds, not just the letters,
Yeah.
mastering the most common words you'll use every day and getting a feel for core pronunciation challenges like that tricky thunot sound, perhaps.
Mm.
For grammar, it moves beyond just memorizing rules. It advocates for deeply embedding simple structures like subject, verb, object, think, she eats apples. Really basic stuff. And then gradually building up questions, basic tenses. But by understanding their natural flow, not just rules, it points to specific curated apps and YouTube channels for structured foundational learning, not just, casual browsing.
Okay, so building that foundation, that toolkit, and getting a clearer sense of the terrain, that makes sense. But then, many people hit that wall. They feel like they're just collecting facts, vocabulary lists.
Right.
But the guide suggests the real magic happens when you don't just memorize, but truly immerse yourself. And it makes such a brilliant point. You absolutely don't have to pack up and move to London or New York to do this effectively. You can do it from anywhere.
Building on that, yes, the guide really emphasizes how crucial it is to just surround yourself with English content, even if you're not in an English-speaking country. But like you hinted, it's not just watch Netflix. It introduces strategies like active listening.
Active listening, how does that work?
Well, you might pick a show or a movie and focus only on one character's dialogue. Or use English subtitles, but not just for understanding. Use them for matching the spoken rhythm to the written words. It's about engagement.
Okay, I get it. More intentional.
Exactly. And for reading, it recommends a tiered approach.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe start with graded readers.
Yeah.
Those books intentionally simplified for learners. Then move to articles or blogs on topics you already find interesting in your own language. That gives you familiar context for the new vocabulary.
Ah, smart.
The deeper insight here really is that immersion works best when it's intentional and, importantly, aligned with your current level. Don't jump in too deep too fast.
I can definitely see how that would normalize the language in your ears and brain,
Right.
make it feel less foreign. But here's something that many learners, and I'll include myself here, often shy away from, actually speaking.
The big one.
Yeah. The guide points out it's a common mistake to wait, but, for someone with maybe perfectionist tendencies, the idea of just speak is, well, it's easier said than done. Does it offer any specific, maybe psychological hacks to actually overcome that fear?
This raises a really important question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Why do so many learners wait until they feel fluent, whatever that means, to start speaking?
Hmm.
The guide is emphatic. This waiting period, it's counterproductive.
Great.
The key takeaway isn't just don't be afraid of mistakes. That's easy to say. It's more about seeing mistakes as well as data points.
Table points.
Yeah, essential feedback for improvement, not failures. It reframes them. And for actually overcoming the fear, it suggests starting in very low-stakes environments. Record yourself speaking, maybe, and listen back. Or use language exchange apps like HelloTalk or Tandem places where everyone is literally in the same boat.
Mm-hmm.
Or even just narrate your day aloud to yourself in English. Just practice forming the sounds, the sentences. The crucial bit is to embrace the messiness of early speech. Remember that every stumble, every awkward phrase is actually a step forward.
That's genuinely freeing advice, embracing the mistakes as just part of the process, not something to dread. And as you're speaking, you're constantly realizing, oh, I don't know the word for that, or how do I phrase this complex idea?
Exactly.
So building your vocabulary every day is obviously super important, but how does the guide suggest we do that beyond just endless flashcard lists?
Yeah, it's one of the most crucial aspects, and the guide really refines the process. It moves beyond just general word lists. It champions something called a thematic vocabulary approach.
Thematic.
Yeah, learning clusters of words related to specific topics you actually talk about or want to talk about, like travel or work tech, makes them immediately useful.
Like practical.
And beyond flashcards, it introduces this clever contextual webbing technique.
Yeah.
You link new words not just to a definition, but to synonyms, antonyms, example sentences, creating a richer network in your brain.
Like building connections.
Precisely. And perhaps most powerfully, it argues for learning phrases, not just individual words, common expressions, idioms. Memorizing these helps you sound more natural, more fluent. It allows for more authentic communication rather than just sort of stringing together isolated terms awkwardly.
Okay, phrases, not just words. That makes sense. So we're building up our word bank, trying to speak. What about understanding others, especially native speakers? The guide mentions that listening comprehension can often be the hardest skill, right? Given the speed, the accents, all that variation.
It definitely can be. And what's fascinating here is the structured approach the guide suggests for improving listening. It goes beyond just passive exposure. It recommends starting with what it calls active listening ladders. Yeah, you begin with very slow, clear audio, designed specifically for learners. Then you gradually climb up, move to native content, maybe first with English subtitles, then eventually without. Step by step.
Gradual increase in difficulty.
Exactly. And a key technique highlighted is shadowing,
Shadowing.
where you actively mimic phrases and sentences you hear, focusing on the intonation, the rhythm, the music of the language. You literally talk along with the speaker.
Oh, interesting. Like mimicking an accent almost.
In a way, yeah, but it's more about the flow. And for a deeper dive, it suggests micro-transcription. You take short audio clips and actually type out exactly what you hear. It incredibly improves both your listening and your writing skills at the same time. Forces you to catch every single word and sound.
Wow, that sounds intensive, but like a powerful combo.
Yeah.
Okay, but what about grammar? For some, grammar rules feel like this labyrinth of exceptions, complexities, often a major roadblock. So what does this all mean for tackling that challenge without getting completely bogged down and discouraged?
Yeah, grammar can be intimidating. The guide suggests a more integrated, less scary approach. Instead of getting lost memorizing rules in isolation, it advocates for what it calls situational grammar,
Situational rule.
meaning learning grammar in context. You start with those foundational sentence structures we talked about, not as abstract rules, but as patterns you actually observe and then replicate from simple texts or audio you encounter.
So learning by seeing and doing.
Exactly. It emphasizes seeing grammar as the glue that holds words together into meaningful thoughts, rather than some separate scary subject you have to study. It does recommend using targeted exercises to reinforce concepts, sure, but always linking them back to real-world usage. Understanding how grammar actually functions in conversation and writing, not just on a test.
That feels much more practical, tying it back to actual communication. Okay, and what about motivation? We said learning a language is a long haul, right? Climbing that mountain.
Definitely a marathon.
How do we keep going when it gets tough, when we feel like we're stuck on a plateau and not making progress?
That's where community comes in. The guide strongly emphasizes tapping into the collective energy of English learning communities.
Ah, like groups or forums.
Exactly.
Mm.
Whether it's a local language exchange group, if you can find one, or maybe a bustling online forum or chat group, interacting with others who are on the same journey, it can be an incredible source of motivation, accountability, and just essential support when you're struggling.
Yeah, knowing you're not alone.
Precisely. It specifically points out how these communities provide opportunities for low-stakes practice everyone's learning. You can find accountability partners, get nuanced feedback that a textbook or an app just can't offer. These connections make the whole process feel less isolating, maybe even more enjoyable. It turns that individual climb into more of a shared expedition.
Yeah.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, the central theme running through this entire guide, really, is that mastering English is a marathon, not a sprint, and consistency is just paramount. It emphasizes that while it's easy to get frustrated when you don't see immediate dramatic progress, and you often won't, giving up just isn't the answer. Keep going. The foundational elements we've unpacked today, from strategically setting those goals and understanding the core building blocks, to deeply immersing yourself, embracing speaking early, even with mistakes, and leveraging community, it all contributes to this consistent, deliberate effort over time. The core message is really clear. The more time and effort you put in, the more confident and fluent you'll become. It's cumulative.
That's such an encouraging takeaway because it brings it right back to your personal journey, doesn't it? The listener's journey. The guide has this wonderful point about celebrating the small wins.
Yes, very important.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, navigating your own linguistic mountain? It means recognizing those moments. Whether it's successfully ordering food in English on your next trip, finally understanding a complex news article, or maybe just grasping a nuanced joke in a new podcast without needing the subtitles. Every single one of those moments is a victory. A flag planted on your climb. Celebrate them.
Absolutely. And this raises an important question. If language learning is truly a marathon, not a sprint, as the guide says, what's one small, maybe unexpected way you could weave English practice into your everyday routine starting today? Something that feels less like a chore, and more like a small personal victory. Perhaps it's something you've already started doing without even realizing it's a step on the path. Worth thinking about.
We really hope this deep dive has equipped you with some incredibly practical, maybe refreshed insights and steps to embark on or continue your English learning journey. Remember, the path of learning is a rewarding one, truly. And every step, no matter how small it feels, brings you closer to your goals.